Suppose we want to solve a simple quadratic equation like x squared equals 9. What I see students doing typically is take the square root of both sides. So you can see the work there, and the question is this correct? The answers certainly seem to be correct. If we substitute in 3 or -3, it does satisfy the original equation. Let's take a look at it a little more carefully. So when we solve the equation this way, we get the correct answers, but neither side of the equation is correct. So the square root of x squared is actually not equal to x, and the square root of 9 is actually not equal to plus or minus 3. Let's take a closer look here at square root. So when we write the symbol that you see at the top there, square root of 9, that means the principal square root of 9, or the positive square root of 9, which is just positive 3. If we want the negative of that, we put a negative in front of the square root. So we would read that as negative square root of 9, and that is negative 3. So the square root of 9, or the principal square root of 9, is 3, and the negative square root of 9 is negative 3. Let's take a look at the other aspect of this. Let's say, for example, that we have 3 squared and then we take its square root. That would be the square root of 9, or the principal square root of 9, and that equals 3. Now if we start with negative 3 and we square it and take its square root, we also get the square root of 9, which is 3. So either way we get positive 3, whether the initial number started out being 3 or negative 3. So the square root of x squared is not equal to x, it's actually equal to the absolute value of x, because that principal square root will always be positive regardless of the sign of x. So if we put these two ideas together, if we decide to solve this equation x squared equals 9 by taking the square root of both sides, we should do that correctly. So the square root of x squared is the absolute value of x, and the square root of 9 is 3, and then we have an absolute value equation. If the absolute value of x equals 3, then x can equal positive or negative 3. The absolute value of positive or negative 3 is just 3. So that's one way we can solve this equation, taking the square root of both sides, but then doing that in a mathematically correct way. Another way we can solve these equations is by using what's called the square root property of equality. It says if x squared equals k, any number k, then x must equal positive or negative square root of k. So using that square root property of equality, if x squared equals 9, then x must equal the positive or negative square root of 9, or x equals plus or minus 3. So solving basic quadratic equations like this, we can either take the square root of both sides and follow through that correctly, or we can use the square root property of equality.